Okay, so I've cast on my stitches, the amount needed for my particular project, which I'm doing a doll size hat, the same one we're doing in class, so 40 stitches instead of 64. I'm going to take out one of my needles. Now, I am going to divide my stitches up with 1/3 of them on this needle, 1/3 of them will stay on the cable, and the other third is going to come up onto the other needle. Now you'll notice I'm not counting or trying to do an even division, just approximately. Okay, there's my tail, it's over here out of the way. Remember when you take the first stitch to join your project into the round that you're not twisted, because then you'll end up knitting something like a Moebius strip, and that's not what you want for this particular project. You want to make sure all your loops are on the top and your cast on edge is around the center. You're just going to go ahead and take that first stitch. Your working yarn is coming off of your right needle, and we're going to put our stitch marker so that we know that that's the beginning of our round. And begin knitting. I'm going to make ribbing, a 2x2 ribbing, so I'm knitting 2 and purling 2. Knit and purl. Now, I'm going to talk for a moment about the tension on your working yarn. There are many different ways to hold this yarn up through your hands. Some people wind it through a number of fingers. I just get it between the first finger and the middle finger, my index and middle finger. You're going to have to figure out what works for you. I suggest starting with the pinky and maybe winding up like that, because it is very important for continental knitting that you have control of this yarn with this index finger. For knitting, you're going to leave it in the back, but for purling, it needs to come to the front. And you're actually making that stitch happen by manipulating this yarn, as opposed to crossing it, letting go of everything, reaching up, wrapping it around. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that way of knitting. It's much slower, and which isn't a bad thing. This is supposed to be relaxing. This is a hobby. However, the continental style actually is probably better for your wrists, because you're going to have less of the repetitive motion, because you're just going small motions, which makes it much more efficient. Small motions. I'm going to do those 2 stitches again slowly. The knit stitch is behind. We go between the 2 stitches, which we call this the front of that stitch. Remember, if I came in this way, I have to bring it back out. So I'm coming in, grabbing that back, pulling it off. Coming in the front, taking a loop off of my working yarn with just using the tip and bringing it off. For the purl, my yarn needs to come to the front. I'm coming in the back door, using my fingertip to pull that around and then just tucking it back through. Let's do that again. Coming in the back, using my fingertip to tension that around and slipping it off. The other thing you'll notice is that my middle finger is controlling these stitches. I'm not leaving them clear in the middle of the needle and then trying to stretch it off, nor am I letting them fall off the end. I normally rest it right here where the needle begins to taper down to the point is probably a good place. That keeps them securely on the needle, and you're not going to let them fall off, but you're also not stretching them a mile to get them over the tip. So one final time. The purl stitch, and the knit stitch. Okay, now you see I've run out of stitches, so I'm going to slide some of these off and bring that loop through, bring this loop through, and slide this portion. These are my live stitches. It's the ones I'm about to work on. So let me show you the way they're distributed. Again, that's not even, but that's fine because I actually want a good number over here. Because if I only move 3 over there, then I can only knit 3 off before I have to move the stitches again. If I move, let's say I've got 40 stitches on here, maybe I have about 20 over here and only 10 on each of these two, that means I get to knit 20 stitches before I have to rearrange my work again. So again, it's just a little more efficient. And bear with me 1 second and we'll be right over there and I'll show you how we go past that stitch marker. So 2 knits, 2 purls. I'm not knitting through that, I'm just sliding it from one needle to the next. I've done 1 round, now I'm ready, I just continue knitting. The knit goes on top of the last knit stitch and the purls go on top of the last purl stitch. And in this way we end up with our columns of ribbing. 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, and 2 purls.